Sara, I am just so excited to have you here and, your journey with infertility. Can you take us back to those years?
Oh, goodness. Well, they were long years for sure. As we progressed through life, we got married. Like I think so many of us, we expect there's going to be a progression. Yeah. You go to high school, and after high school, you get a job or you go to college, then you get married, then you have kids. And my husband and I, we just stalled out in that progression. And I just felt this deep sense of life isn't working for me like it is for everybody else. My friends would have their first and second and third baby. I think of how I thought I've got to get a frequent flyer card to the 4th floor of Martha Jefferson Hospital because that's where all my friends had their babies. Their rite of passage was a do not enter sign for me. So it was a dark, lonely time of wondering, where are you, God? And I know you're good. I'm just actually not sure if you're good for me.
And I'm sure, talking about frequent flyers, you went to a lot of baby showers.
Lots of baby showers.
I mean,
so many dinner conversations.
Celebrating someone else. How did you navigate that celebration?
So many dinner conversations around birth or baby showers where people are sharing stories, and I'm sitting there not wanting to not celebrate and at the same, wanting to be seen, and at the same time not wanting to be seen. I don't want anyone to know this ache, because if they do, what do I do with it? I remember one afternoon I was sitting in my kitchen during this very long season, and I had read for the first, I probably wasn't the first time, but sometimes you read scripture for you think
sure,
it's for the first time. Page. Proverbs 27:7, and it says, "The satiated soul loathes the honeycomb, but to the hungry soul, every bitter thing is sweet." And I thought, God, you are making me hungry through this. I want more of something. I thought it was a baby, but it might also maybe be you. And it's here that this bitterness in my life, I think you can actually do something with it and make it sweet.
Mm-hmm. So after struggling and living that for many years, a decade?
Over a decade, 12 years.
Over a decade, okay. But then you decided to adopt. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we had always wanted to adopt. We had lived with a family who had adopted, and really very early on in our marriage, and thought this looks like, or it feels like maybe an invitation from God for us. But we thought we'd have biological children first, and then after many years of infertility, we thought maybe this is God's invitation for us to pursue this now. So we adopted 2 children from Ethiopia, then 2 years later from Uganda, 2 older children.
What advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about adoption, or who maybe is already there, and maybe life is great, maybe it doesn't look like what they thought it would?
Mm-hmm. One of my children many years ago said to me, "Mom, everybody says to me adoption is so wonderful, and I don't think it's wonderful." And I entered into that moment with this child and realized, I think in a deeper way, that what we celebrate oftentimes on our side as being this restoration comes at the tail end of profound loss, like the kind of loss that is some of the worst in the world, to have lost your parents, your biological parents. And so I would say to someone thinking about adoption, or even in the throes of it, there is profound grief involved in this process that really does last a lifetime. It doesn't just disappear. I think we sometimes tend to think, oh, there's this God restoration and all the pain disappears. I think we will see that in eternity, but not on this side. So I would say be prepared that there will be long stretches of grief that are actually a part of the process, that is much messier, I think, than we want to encapsulate in a 3-minute video that displays the handiwork of God. And as I look at my life, I thought adoption would mean the restoration of this soul and this heart and this life, and it would look this way. And yet God is working deeply in my heart and my story and my life through this unexpected turn and this messy journey and this beautiful journey. And it's all those things in one. And he's working in this child's life, and he's working in the life of our family. There is this kind of multifaceted display of God that doesn't always feel like it makes sense and looks wonderful. It's challenging and complicated, but it is his work.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Hard, but beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
It's both. I mean, can we hold both, that it is challenging and beautiful, and neither negates the other?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned going to the baby showers. I think all of us have a friend or friends who are walking through that hard path, that infertility, that month after month, hope. What is something we can say to encourage our friend in that season, and what is something you should never say to somebody who's...
Can I be honest?
Yes, please be honest. I know. We want to know how to come alongside our friends. This is mom life. It's messy.
Oh, it is. It is. And I appreciate you asking that question. I will say to encourage, I think it's sitting with a friend. I remember one of my dear friends got pregnant again with her second during our long stretch of infertility. And she came over and told me she was pregnant in person and cried with me. And it was profound. It actually enabled me to celebrate with her in a deeper way, that she would acknowledge, like, just be so direct. And I realize some people don't necessarily appreciate this directness, but I did. That she could just be right there with me saying, here's this, and I realize the implications for your life are that this will feel painful for you, which I think opened me up to be able to celebrate with her. I think the advice that I would suggest not to say is honestly giving advice. I think it can be really hard when you're in the throes of infertility, because everybody's got an idea of how, if you just, this is all of life, right? If you just did this one thing, then your pain would end. If you just did this, then you could get to the other side. And I think ultimately somebody who's in that position, they're either thinking about trying lots of things, or they are trying lots of things, or they're not able to try lots of things because their heart is in such grief that I think standard, here's the next step that could maybe get you out of this situation, really negates the necessary validation of their pain.
Yeah, just not that helpful.
It's not helpful.
Just lean in and acknowledge their pain.
Yes, acknowledge their pain. Don't tell them what to do.
Good advice. Good advice. Okay, well, speak to the friend who may be watching, who maybe she got married later in life. Maybe she's been walking that infertility journey for a couple of years. I mean, your story is a story of hope.
I think we hit a point that was like well beyond what would provide evidence of circumstantial hope. I mean, it was 12 years of infertility. And at the end of that time, the Lord surprised us. We still had a glimmer of maybe we might conceive.
And how old were you?
36.
36, okay.
36, and then I conceived 4 times between 36 and 42. Three children that we actually still have with us. I did miscarry. So it is extremely unexpected as I look back at my story, that after we had this fully formed family and loved the family that God gave us, the Lord said, and I also am going to surprise you with this.
Wow. And you must have thought, what the heck? And even on this last pregnancy, when you went in and you're 42 years old, did you think you were Sarah, like Abraham's wife? What did you say?
On the ultrasound table, and I'm like, surely I am the oldest person you've seen in here. And the ultrasound tech said, actually, I just had a 48-year-old in here. So I feel like my story is this picture of there is a profound work of God in surrender, where we move towards a place and we say, and I don't think this doesn't happen in a summer.
Right.
This is a lifelong journey of kind of leaning into maybe your story, maybe your story is better than mine, God. I kind of don't believe that, but I'm going to inch toward that. And then as I inch toward that, I actually find that there's a little more freedom in my heart when I start to go, your story might be better than mine. And I mean, that's I would say years-long process and multiple times over. But then to move into a place of going, I think your story might be better, and then have the Lord surprise you. For us, it was profound. I remember the morning that I realized I was pregnant, just listening to worship music and weeping and going, this God that I serve is absolutely unexpected. And I had just settled into a deeper layer of acceptance. This is what you have for me.
Wow. I want to talk about your new book. It's called The Gift of Limitations, Finding Beauty in Your Boundaries. Yeah. I know. So what is the heart message of that book?
The heart message is this. So many of us are facing things in our lives. Basically, what I would say is a little bit of a fence line, where we are feeling stuck where we are. whether it's a physical limitation or we're moms with young kids and we're feeling limited at home and we remember that career we sort of had or dreamed about and we can't get there, or we're there and we're divided with our kids and doing that. And or it may be just there's just dreams and desires we had for our marriage and they're not where it's not where we want it to be. We all are facing some sort of fence line where we feel like we're trapped right here, but we can see the life over there. And I think we become masters of studying the life over there. And this book is about what would it look like to hold hands with God and say, what do you have for me right here in my backyard inside the fence line?
And speak to that person who is in there. And I think about my own adult daughters, and they may be limited by just their weariness.
Oh, goodness, yes.
You know, speak to the tired mom.
I mean, I am her. I will speak to me.
Yeah, so where's the hope inside the fence line there when you are just getting up, doing the mom
barely
thing,
making it,
and you get the food and you get the kids and you get the whatever, and then you go to bed, and then Groundhog Day you wake up and do it again the next day, and you're just thinking, I'm tired.
Oh, I remember having it. Yes.
You write in this book, I think, you say our tiredness can be a gift.
I remember having a day where I am like sauteing onions. And I have a timeline. I got to get dinner out by this time because it's something we had that night. And I have a kid screaming and melting down and another child's bleeding in the other room. And I'm going, there is no, how am I, and how is this my life? I mean, I would flash back to like earlier versions of me that were much stronger. Like, who am I? I think our tiredness is a gift because we oftentimes in our strength outrun the limitations that God has given us. And we forget that there is a God who's actually orchestrating all of this and working behind the scenes. That is 2 Corinthians 12 says his power is made perfect in our weakness. And I think he gives us the gift of tiredness and weakness to actually find him. Because ultimately as a mom, I will find the most joy when I connect with God, not when I'm my best version of myself. And I think sometimes he uses tiredness or sickness or just the exhaustion of motherhood that's kind of cumulative and compounding to bring us back to these places of, oh, that's right, like the real joy in my life is you, God. It's when I feel seen by you. It's when I feel held. But I mean, we are moms who hold, and we forget that, like, just like our 2-year-old who really is whiny because ultimately they just want to sit on mom's lap, that God is saying the same thing to us. I think today you might just need to sit on my lap. And I think our tiredness brings us back to these places of neediness that sometimes in our strength we think we need to work out of. We like the stronger versions of ourselves, but I wonder if God may like the weaker versions of us better.
That makes me think of a psalm you and I both love, Psalm 16. And is it verse 6 that says, the boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places.
Yes.
And I know, for the mom who's reading that and going, the boundary lines have fallen in pleasant places, doesn't feel very pleasant.
Right.
But what you're saying is it is when we see it through God's eyes.
Absolutely. And I think it's a journey. I think it would be, gosh, we'd be foolish to think, gosh, I'm going to hear this one message and then tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to love the fence line that's in my life that's making me tired. I'm feeling compounded exhaustion.
Financial limitations.
Yes, financial limitations. Or I'm sick and I can't get out of bed. I'm going to love this. No, I don't think it's that simple, but I do think there is an invitation from God to go on a journey of being curious about the fence line instead of resenting it, instead of desperately wanting to be over it. I mean, we do that, right? We look to the day when this is over, when this baby finally sleeps through the night. We think there, then, but I think it's an invitation to go on a journey of saying, oh, this fence line is actually something I want to look at with curiosity. Like, why has God allowed this? And what might he be doing in it? And could it be that eventually on the other side of this, I might say the second part of that psalm is, I have a beautiful inheritance.
Love that. It makes me think of Job when he says, I catch no glimpse of God, but he knows the way I take.
Ooh.
Like, we might not even be able to see him to see what he's doing.
You can't bring up Job in this interview.
I love Job. And the reason I love Job, and for anybody who is struggling, whether it's with infertility or it's an unmet longing or desire, I look at Job and he railed at God. He wanted an explanation. He wanted a vindication. He wanted all of that stuff. But through it all, he never stopped praying. He never stopped talking to God. He didn't pull away. He did that very thing that you talk about, like God can take it. We can come to him with this stuff. And yet Job endured. He kept on talking to the Lord. He kept on waiting. He kept on watching. And he never did get his explanation. But what he got was God. What he got was God. And so, Sara, that is what you are leading us to. You are taking us by the hand like that trusted friend, the older sister, who is saying, I know it's hard, but there's such power in endurance. And you've said this before, we can't short circuit the process. We want to go straight from suffering to hope. We want that perseverance to produce that character. We want to count it all joy, like James says, but it's messy.
It's messy and it's long. It's a lot longer than we thought. And in many ways, it's also more beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking us by the hand, for being the girl who's gone before and is going to say, come on, come with me and I'll show you the way. So you're so very dear. You're dear. And y'all, that is exactly what we're doing here on Mom Life. We are talking, we are praying, we are trusting the God who holds us. And in the description below, you will find a collection of prayers, the things that Sara and I have been talking about, things we've chosen especially for you. Click that link. Pray with us. Thank you so much for being with us today, and hang in there. God sees you. He loves you. You are deeply known, deeply loved. We'll see you next time.